For pretty much all of human history, we've had this one simple idea about time. We see it as a constant, right? A universal river just flowing at the exact same speed for every single one of us, everywhere. It's simple, it's how we live our lives. But what if that core assumption is completely wrong?
So let's really dig into that question. Is time the same for everyone? And look, this isn't just some late-night philosophical question. This is a real debate that pits classical physics against modern science and, pretty surprisingly, against an ancient text.
For centuries, the big idea was absolute time, and its champion was Sir Isaac Newton. The idea was simple. There's one giant universal clock for the entire cosmos, and it just ticks away, the same for everyone. But then along comes Albert Einstein, and he proposes something that sounded, frankly, insane: relative time. The idea that your time is personal, it's elastic. It can literally stretch and shrink depending on how fast you're going.
So how did Einstein's theory just completely shatter our old understanding of time? Well, it all boils down to one absolutely mind-bending concept. And that concept is called time dilation. What it means, in simple terms, is that the faster you move through space, the slower you move through time. And this isn't science fiction, okay? This is a proven fact of our universe. Astronauts on the International Space Station right now are aging just a tiny fraction of a second slower than we are down here. And the crazier part? The closer you get to the speed of light, the more extreme this time-slowing effect becomes. To really wrap your head around this, think about the classic twin paradox. Imagine you have two identical twins. One stays here on Earth, and the other hops in a spaceship and zooms off at nearly the speed of light. When that traveling twin finally comes back to Earth, they will be younger than the twin who stayed behind. A single day for them might have been years for everyone else. Time literally passed differently for them.
Okay, so that's the modern physics. But this is where our story takes a really fascinating turn. Because 1,300 years before Einstein, a 7th century text, the Quran, was already describing a framework for time that wasn't fixed and constant, but was, in its essence, completely relative. So take a look at this first verse. It presents this really striking ratio. And notice, it's not just saying a divine day is, a long time. No, it's setting up a direct mathematical comparison between two different frames of reference. It's saying a day in one context is equal to 1,000 years in another. And what's absolutely fascinating is that this ratio isn't even a constant. A second verse comes along and describes a day for angels, who are traditionally described as being created from light, as being equivalent to 50,000 human years. So first you get this idea, one day can be like 1,000 years. But then, for these beings of light who are traveling, that very same single day is suddenly 50,000 years. This directly implies that the elasticity of time isn't fixed. It actually changes based on the traveler. So let's just break this down. What are the crucial points here? First, you have two different ratios. That suggests time dilation isn't some fixed number, it's a variable. Second, this effect is specifically linked to angels, or beings of light, who are traveling at incredible speeds. And maybe most importantly, look at how the text qualifies it, of those which you count. It is explicitly setting up two different clocks for two different observers. That's the very core of relativity. Now, of course, the big question comes up immediately. Are we supposed to take this literally? Is this a description of physics, or is this just beautiful poetic language? And look, the skeptic's view is a very reasonable one. It says these numbers, 1,000, 50,000, they're just ancient ways of saying a really, really long time. It's poetic hyperbole. But the counter-argument is that the language isn't just poetic, it's comparative. It's explicitly setting up two distinct reference frames, a day with your Lord versus a day that you count. And that is the absolute foundation of relativity. And that leads us to what might be the most powerful insight of all. When we move beyond just the numbers and look at the underlying framework of time that's being presented. And right here, this is where we get to the core of it. Because whether those numbers are literal or not is almost beside the point. The truly astonishing part is the underlying concept being put forward. Think about it. In a 7th century world, a world where time was just assumed to be absolute and universal for everybody, this text put forward a model where time is flexible. It's personal. It depends on the observer and how fast they're moving. It was conceptually rejecting the idea of a single universal clock, centuries before Newton even formalized that idea, let alone Einstein proving it wrong. So, what does this all mean? How are we supposed to look at this incredible parallel between cutting-edge physics and this ancient scripture?
You could say that Albert Einstein, with his brilliant mathematics and his theory of relativity, is the one who gave humanity the tools to finally see the true, bizarre nature of time. He showed us the glass, the window into a reality that is so much weirder than we ever imagined.
And here's the final provocative thought to leave you with. If Einstein showed us the glass, then perhaps the purpose of verses like these wasn't to be a physics textbook. Maybe it was to simply point to the view, to plant a conceptual seed, one that rejected the simple, intuitive model of time, and then, centuries later, found its scientific description. It suggests that time isn't a solid wall, but a window, and while science gave us the frame, some believe the view was there all along.